Moscow, December 1941. Having successfully stopped the German advance in its tracks, Stalin knows it's time to turn the tables on Hitler.
Stalin saw that the German army collapsed. It was the classical picture of the defeat of an enemy army having invaded Russia. So it's winter, the soldiers running away from the Russian divisions, and Stalin was sure he will be able to drive Germans out of Russia.
One thing the German high commanders had not expected is that the Soviets would have enough reserves after all the men they'd lost in the course of 1941 to mount a major attack from the Moscow region. But in fact, that's exactly what they did.
As the Red Army attack with full force, the Wehrmacht hold their ground.
First, there was continuous bombardment from the enemy artillery using the famous Stalin organs. 36 shots in relay, 36 shots. One after another landed, and my entire gunnery crew dead, of course. The Russians were all able to ski. They travelled 30 kilometres behind our front line with their skis and weapons and attacked our isolated posts. We had no defence against them.
There are now months of brutal fighting across Russia, with neither side willing to back down.
Soviet troops turning from retreat to attack, driving the powerful and hitherto invincible German army back across the snow. 350,000 killed in 2 months.
With Leningrad still under siege and Moscow beyond his grasp, Hitler prepares an ambitious new offensive to finally crush the Soviet Union. Volgograd, summer 1942. Known at this time as Stalingrad, the city is now on Hitler's radar.
The Soviet Union has got lots of oil in its Transcaucasian region. They would float lots of barges from the Caspian Sea up the Volga River to Moscow. The one chance to deprive the Soviets of their fuel was to cut the Volga River and stop the flow of oil to the Soviet war machine.
After cutting off the River Volga, Hitler orders a direct attack on the city itself.
Hitler became obsessed, and Hitler shifted the emphasis of the whole offensive back from the Caucasus to Stalingrad. In Hitler's mind, it was clear, if I take Stalingrad, I am symbolically defeating Stalin.
The enormous city, stretching for 30 miles along the Volga, was enveloped in flames. Everything around was burning and collapsing. Sorrow and death entered into thousands of Stalingrad homes.
As the Battle of Stalingrad intensifies, there's bitter urban warfare, and losses on both sides rapidly escalate.
We were afraid when we were preparing for an attack. You got ice-cold shivers down your spine. But when you had been in Russia for 3 or 4 years, then you had the fear under control. It was bad for the youngsters who came from home as replacements and were immediately involved in some dreadful attack or defense.
When you're fighting in Stalingrad after the Nazis have bombed the hell out of it and shelled the hell out of it, you're not fighting street to street, you're fighting crater to crater. Stalingrad has become, for the Soviets, a horrible but very effective environment for defending against the Germans.
We had to get out, looking for cover as mortar shells exploded around us. We learned that we could no longer get to our unit because a few hours before, the Russians had closed the ring around Stalingrad.
As the Red Army continues to reinforce, it becomes clear to Hitler that the Soviets are prepared to go to any lengths to defend Stalingrad.
We had dogs that blew up tanks. TNT was strapped to their backs. They threw themselves under the tanks. the explosives would detonate. I pity the dogs as well, but how many young people would die from the onslaught of those tanks?
The heroic defense of Stalingrad. The Soviet army turning the Nazi six-month assault into the most ghastly military disaster in German history.
After months of fighting, the Red Army overcome the Nazis, taking many prisoner.
The crack 100th Division that smashed through Belgium and France in abject surrender.
When German 6th Army is encircled by the Soviets at Stalingrad, after years of the Germans doing the encircling, the Germans take a significant psychological blow.
Stalingrad was more a symbol for the public. So it was a symbol of defeat for the Germans. It was a symbol of victory for the Soviets. It was a symbol of turning the tide for the neutral powers.
A Red Army victory at Stalingrad may have the Wehrmacht in retreat, but with German forces still prepared to fight all the way, the liberation of the Soviet Union is a long way off.